Starting over in your 40s or at any age is not easy. Hi everyone, this is Kiss by Mike, and in today's episode, I'll be talking about really pivoting into a new career, talking about my own personal experience in hopes that maybe someone out there can find them inspiring. So I'm just gonna start by talking about my journey. I grew up in the Philippines. I remember when I was maybe 10 years old, it's very common for the older people like your relatives to ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember I have so many different answers. At one point I wanted to become a pilot because maybe somebody who was a pilot inspired me. I also at some point wanted to be an astronaut or a doctor. But I think out of all those answers, at that age, at least in my experience, there was probably one answer that was more realistic in my mind back then. And for me, it was working in the corporate world. So being an office worker, really. I think the idea came about because I used to watch a lot of Hollywood movies. And I remember watching actors or characters and they're portraying this corporate worker persona. There was a Ben Affleck movie I think that I saw, and he was on the phone walking in Manhattan wearing a business attire, like the tie, the jacket, the briefcase, and maybe he was smoking even or holding a coffee. But that was kind of my version of sort of the dream. I was sort of romanticizing the corporate life, and so I think that was the realistic dream that I had in my mind when I was younger, when I was growing up. And that also became the dream that I pursued in real life. So, fast forward to several years later, I graduated from college and then I got my first job. I was so happy because it was with a big company. I worked for Accenture. It was a good consulting company, and man, I remember the feeling when I found out that I got the job. I literally was screaming. I was riding a bus on the way home to my aunt's place in Manila, where I was staying in for a little bit. And I was with a friend of mine, and we were just celebrating. I really was screaming, and I was so happy. And the next step as I started working, I really did feel happy. And I felt like I was making progress in terms of my career. I After the Accenture gig, um, that's when I moved to the US basically. So when I moved to the US, I worked for other consulting companies. I consulted for Merck and all these other healthcare companies. And I did it for maybe 4 or 5 more years. And then there was really this desire in my heart to be that corporate person that I imagined when I was younger. And honestly, there was a reality show back in early 2000s, and I'm not going to mention the name of it because I don't want to. But there was a competition that featured a lot of this young corporate applicants vying for a job, and somehow that show contributed to really my desire to even push myself forward and get further and really be a corporate person. So the next step in my career was I pursued an MBA. I remember studying for GMATs like several months. I eventually took the GMAT and I was happy with my score. And then I started applying to business schools because that was my goal. That was my dream. I wanted to have an education here in the US. I grew up in the Philippines and I went to college there, and so I never had education here, and so that was my dream that I was pursuing. And then, you know, I after hard work, after so many things, I ended up getting accepted. And I dropped everything. I quit my job uh, right there and then. I, it was going to be a lot of money. So I took out all of my 401k because my goal was I wanted to get my MBA before I turned 30. So anyway, that was what I did. I went to business school, and I would say that the business school experience, that was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. The best 2 years of my life, actually, looking back, because there was a lot of new things for me. The education in the US, I felt like I was moving towards my goal of being that corporate executive, because I wanted to be wearing this suit and I want to be walking in New York with like a briefcase or drinking my coffee, like the romanticization of that image. So anyway, fast forward to business school or after business school, after 2 years. Oh, by the way, I would say though, the point of the business school experience for me was really to pivot into a new career. So I was working IT work before. I was in a technical field, and then I wanted to transition into more business, more of the on the business side. And I felt I was successful in doing that because I got accepted when I was at business school. I applied for so many jobs. Oh my gosh, that was probably the first time that I felt, you know, like rejection. It was kind of like a cannonball of rejections. There were rejection after rejection after rejection. I tried to apply for a job. I wouldn't name the companies anymore. They were big companies. There was one job that I interviewed 5 times and I still didn't get it. And all of that I feel like maybe contributed to building that resilience, understanding how it works in the real world, that there's gotta be so many rejections and heartaches. And you know what? I lived it, and I managed through it. I felt fine afterwards. I eventually got a job. I worked for IBM. I was in product management role, and man, that experience working at IBM, I was there for about 4 years, and it was amazing. It was great because once again I felt like I was moving forward with my dreams. I finally was living the dream, and IBM gave me so many opportunities, including travel. Oh my gosh, like there was so many times that I found myself really traveling in so many places that I've never been to in my life before. I went to Paris, to Europe, like Berlin, and doing presentations in Melbourne and China. I mean, that was amazing for me. That was like a good, we really an excellent, like it was great. It was amazing. Yeah, because otherwise, I would not be able to see those places. Really, it was the job that made me see those places. But the thing with me, I kind of feel like there's always something else that I wanted. And maybe this applies to you too, right? As you're pursuing your dreams, sometimes you don't even realize that you're actually living your dreams already. And maybe as I pivot into my real topic today, which is starting over in your 40s or at any age, really, if you're thinking about doing something else from a career perspective, if you're thinking about pivoting into like a different industry, then this is for you as well. So I think for me, honestly, the one realization is, as I was saying earlier, you might not even realize that you're living the dream already. Because if you're like me, I feel like there's always something that I want to do more in my life. Maybe at some point I will just chill and not even think about it and just enjoy and be happy. And I am happy. I think the thing with me is, um, maybe part of that happiness is actually the fulfillment from going through a continuous journey. uh, Maybe for me, it's about constantly going after some things that you're passionate about. I know, somebody told me once that if you're like that, you're never going to be happy. But maybe if you're young, right? I think you're allowed to pursue different things. You're allowed to pursue different passions. If you're content with really what you're doing, that's perfectly fine too. If you're content with the life that you have, or just relaxing and enjoying and all that stuff, that's perfectly fine too. But there are people out there that also find enjoyment in pursuing passions. And not to say that you don't enjoy quiet moments too. I do a lot, really, especially where I am in my life right now. I tend to enjoy more of the quiet moments. I like, to have meaningful friendships and relationships. And it comes with the age too, with the maturity and all that. But that's a different topic. It's a different topic. So I guess moving back into the topic of starting over in your 40s or at any age, I guess number one, I was saying it's okay to have that desire to pursue a new passion, that I feel like is or could be part of really your growth. That means that you're growing as a person. And it comes with so many emotions. There's a fear component, of course, in terms of, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this at this age? Can I endure the pains and heartaches, knowing that there's going to be a lot of heartaches along the way, as you pursue your new career? But you know what? I think the thing that worked for me, or I feel like can work for you, is maybe at this age, maybe you've built some sort of resilience already. All you gotta do is really look back and remember all the times that you've been through in your 20s. How many times have you been rejected? I got rejected when I was looking for a job. I got rejected when I was applying for business school. I got rejected for so many different reasons. And guess what? I endured all of those things. And at the end of it, I still was able to be where I am right now. And maybe just focus on really the good things and the fact that you're able to do all those things and pursue these passions. So going back to kind of where I am in my journey, starting in my 40s, the pivot for me was really, moving away from corporate life. That's the big thing for me because I finally did it. I quit my job last year, 2025, after working in the industry for 25 years. It was really hard because there was the financial readiness component of it. Emotionally, also, it's really the fear, and that's probably what I want to talk a little bit more and sharing my own experience. So, I started my creative journey. I would say realistically, maybe around 2018 or 2019. Even though in the past there were really experiences or moments in which I felt I was interested in storytelling, or the creative pursuit. Because back in early 2000s, when the blogging, thing became popular, I actually had the blog as well, which I kept from 2004 to 2008. It was called Kiss My Mic. It was on Blogspot or one of those platforms. But I ended up stopping when I got accepted to business school because I felt like what I was writing about my experience as a gay Filipino immigrant. And, kind of like I was talking about like Sex in the City or like, bar hopping in New York. It was pretty much in that lane. And so I felt maybe it wasn't aligned with my quote unquote corporate persona. And so I had to make a choice. I felt like I had to choose that business persona and leave that person behind. So anyway, I I lived that corporate life, as I've said. So 2018 rather, my mom passed away. That really inspired me to write a memoir, and that's when I really started this journey of writing the book, Kiss My Mic. It took me maybe it took me several years. It was published eventually in 2021, during or after COVID. But that was the beginning. That was the beginning of my career in this creative world. And then during COVID, I got involved in, or I learned about the app Clubhouse. I'm not sure if anyone here knows about that, but it's this audio only app where you can meet other people out there. It's kind of like a Discord now, right? Without the videos, it's all audio, but you're all having conversations with people. I There were different topics. I really joined a lot of topics about being pursuing the creative life. I met a lot of filmmakers, writers, other Filipinos as well, Asian Americans, and really people in the industry, in the entertainment industry. And so that really put me in the the world of the storytelling. And that's when I started pursuing the craft. I took some lessons and classes and everything about screenwriting, and that was the beginning of my journey. I wrote a short film, and then through the network that I've met at Clubhouse, we decided to collaborate and really uh, shoot the film, basically. So we filmed The Perfect Couple. It was in 2021 in California. Yeah, you can check and find out about that short film. It's on my YouTube, the actual film itself. It's a story about a Filipino American couple, that really, oh my gosh, I can't even talk about the film right now. It's about the expectation that parents have for their kids to be perfect. One of the characters is a Filipino American lawyer, and then the other one is a doctor, and they're like the perfect couple, right? Because they came from great families, they have great careers, but underneath that, there's really a desire for authenticity. I think ultimately that's the message of it, is to find your authenticity and live your authentic life. Um, so again, going back to my point about starting over in 40s, and honestly, you can learn more about my creative projects through my website as well, KM Adventures. Right now, I'm in the middle of it. I've done a few other projects, several short films that I've just completed. I also started being a director. I directed two short films, and now I'm finishing up a feature film. So all of that is in progress. I think the point I want to make about starting over in your 40s is, yes, it can be challenging, but I think I feel like I owe it to myself to really give it a shot. And I'm not saying that right now that I'm there, that I've arrived, like, whatever that means in terms of accolades or, success or whatever. But in terms of fulfillment, I can say that I am there because I'm enjoying what I do. I feel so privileged for being able to do it with great people, and there's always lessons along the way as well. In each project, there's always lesson. I think if you approach it in such a way that there's always ways to learn, that's probably one suggestion that I will say to do it. Starting in your 40s, doing you know doing a career shift or a career change. um, you know, it's there's so many memories, and the thing though is like the journey doesn't stop. The heartaches, they don't stop, but also the fulfillment is there. I think it's worth it for me, and so ultimately, the message that I have, that I want to share, if if you ever have something that you're interested in, and honestly, you know, you have to look at your circumstances, of course, in terms of how much you can do it. I'm not gonna say quit your job or whatever, but ultimately it's your decision. For me, I took a big risk by pursuing this, and otherwise I probably would regret not doing it. And there's no guarantee either. I think you just have to be open to that. You have to think of it in terms of like a learning experience that you're constantly growing. Um, you know, it's okay to look back. It's okay to look back. That was a different life, you know, that was a different life, and that was fun. Anyways, at some point, I think the most important thing is you always have to find happiness in what you do, and it's okay to balance it with doing nothing. Really, like that's what I do now. I'm like, I try to enjoy the quiet, moments as well, and then, uh, outside of that, and that's when I'm doing all my creative uh, projects. So that's really it for today. I'm hoping that this is helpful. I feel like I'm all over the place in my podcast in this episode, but I just want to be authentic and really share what I'm thinking about. Those are the things. If I can think of anything else, I'll probably have some addendum. But really, the thing I want to cover today is really just about starting over. And I think it's such a perfect timing. 2026, we're at the beginning of the year. I know I've been busy really thinking about what to do next and learning and all that. And so that's why I decided to, have another episode and really bring back the podcast. So that's really all what I want to share today. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, and feel free to like or subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify, or just checking it out on Instagram. Thanks, everyone. Bye.